This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
A.L.L is honored to have on the one and only Dr. Logan WEstbrooks, a true pioneer in the field of music entertainment, the first black music executive of a major label, correct?
One of the first.
One of the first. I will see you. I'm testing you on that. Very got a lot of humility. So, Dr. WEstbrooks, welcome today. It's an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. I feel honored that you have come this long distance just to sit down and talk with me, so I feel blessed.
It's always good to talk to a fellow Memphian who's done good or done well, rather. I want to talk to you about this because what was it, how was it like growing up in a city like Memphis?
Well, I grew up in the segregated South. I mean, as any historian will know, anyone that grew up in that era will tell you, everything was segregated. White folks just had their foot down on black folks' neck, and that's the way it was. It was a way of life, and you just had to maneuver and get around it and try to achieve. As a matter of fact, I remember my high school principal, Professor Blair T. Hunt, and he'd always said you get to jump higher and you get to run faster, and I have used that philosophy all my life. I've got to run faster and I've got to jump higher. And in my adult life, it was just a way of life, and it came easy.
Wow, you said you from Booker T. Washington. You were Booker T. Washington,
yes.
How long? So the intro, you mentioned Professor Dr. Blair T. Hunt, but what about, I mean, Memphis is such a musical town. I know, like, Booker T. Washington, at the time, they have Lucy Campbell, the mother of gospel music, and W.T. McDaniel as the band director there?
Yeah, W.T. McDaniel was the band director, and Lucy Campbell in particular, interestingly, being one of my teachers, and I think she had that gospel choir there as well, and I had no idea of the magnitude of that lady. And it was just years later when I just started reading about her, and when I realized, you know, how fortunate I was to have known her and to have met her. She's like a legend.
what was your thoughts about, like, how was she, I mean, as far as a person, her character, how would you describe her?
I would describe her as a very, very warm person, a very, very caring person, and a determined person, a person that was stern in the sense that you had to do what was right, because she would come down on you. I remember that about her, yes.
So were you involved in any music program at Booker T. Washington?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't musically inclined.
Really?
None at all.
So how did this music thing find you then?
Well, I started working, I was hired by RCA Victor Distributing Corps in Chicago, Illinois. And I was hired into their management training program. And in a management training program, you move around in different areas of the company. Now at that particular time, RCA Victor was distributing the Whirlpool washers and dryers. They were distributing and selling the home entertainment centers, as well as the small television sets and phonograph players, as well as records. So in working in the various areas of the company, there was a recording artist that came to town, downtown in the Loop. And I had recently gotten married, and I asked the sales manager if I may have a pair of tickets for my wife and I to go to this fabulous hotel downtown. Ironically, it was a country western artist too, to go to this hotel, so we'd give us a night out for dinner at this fabulous hotel in the show lounge, and also we would see the show. So when I asked him that, he said, "Oh, you like music?" I said, "Wait, I like music." He said, "How would you like to work in the record division next?" I said, "Fine." And my next assignment was training there in the record division. So that really was the beginning of it. That's the way I started in the music business, working there at RCA Victor in the management training program in the record division, and working with Sam Cooke was very hot then, as well as Elvis Presley. Well, Elvis Presley was one of their biggest acts on the label at that particular time, and through the later years as well. And that's when I started working and promoting the black artists, as well as Elvis Presley and the country and western artists and the classical artists. And in working in the record division and moving around in the city, I started working, the 8-track tape came out. And this, ironically, I have a
That's an 8-track.
This is an 8-track tape. And ironically, 8-track tapes were sold through service stations.
Oh.
And the reason being, the Learjet, which was the hardware, was an 8-track player. And at the service station, you would purchase and have that 8-track player machine installed in your car. And after you have it installed, then you could also purchase 8-track tapes. Right there. So I was going out opening up outlets at service stations for them to sell 8-track tapes.
Now what are service stations? I want to make sure, like
gasoline stations.
Okay, I thought you said okay.
Yeah, gasoline stations.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, they call them a full service station then, where you would drive in, you sit in your car, they would fill your tank of gas. They would wash your windshield as well as the rear window. They would check your oil and your water. You're just sitting there.
Wow.
That's the way they were. These were service stations then. And of course you could have an oil change as well as other little minor automobile repairs. And in that service station, they also would install the Learjet 8-track player in your car. And after it's installed, then there was a cardboard rack that had various 8-track artists there that you could purchase. So doing that, moving around in the city, I heard that RCA Victor, that Capitol Records wanted to hire their first black salesman. So I applied for the job and I got it. And as a salesman, I was called a territory salesman. And I had a route. I had different dealers that I serviced, retail outlets, and I would go in and make my presentation on the records that would be coming out the next month. And naturally, I had all of the black accounts. One of the main reasons I was hired. And I had all the black accounts on the south side, as well as on the west side. But now, it was a lot of black accounts there, but it was not enough, say, for to have a complete territory. So consequently, I had a lot of white retail outlets. Matter of fact, at one time I even had Rose Records, which is one of the largest in Chicago, downtown in the Loop. That was one of my accounts. I had the Kmart stores, which is similar to the Target stores here now. I had Sears, and I would go in, make my pitch, and I would serve. So these were my customers. These were the people that I serviced on a regular basis. And in moving around and in setting records on a local basis, I found out about at Capitol Records that there was a position called a promotion manager, which really was a fabulous job. And now, as a promotion manager, basically I'm going into the radio stations, pitching my records, the single releases, the album releases. And this also was a regional position. So I was based in Chicago, but I was responsible for the promotion of all black acts in the entire Midwest, which meant that I picked up Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Kansas City. That was my territory. And I would leave, I would do my local stations there in Chicago on a Monday. And then first thing Tuesday morning, I would fly out of Chicago. I would pick up Detroit. I would work Detroit. Then I'd fly over to Cleveland. I would do Cleveland, and then Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh. Come on back, I'd pick up Kansas City and St. Louis, and then back into Chicago. That was my territory, and I would do that on a weekly basis. And I did that for a year, one full year, which I loved. And then the position opened up on the West Coast. It was a position as the assistant to the vice president of marketing. And he interviewed me for the job, and I was hired. So now I was transferred from Chicago out to the West Coast. And right at the capital town was at Hollywood and Vine. And I was in that position for less than a year. And then I received an offer from Mercury Records back in Chicago. Now, I was the assistant to the VP of marketing for Capitol Records. Now I was promoted up to a job, I received a job rather, as the national promotion manager for Mercury Records. So the company moved me back to Chicago, and which was a fabulous job too, because Mercury Records was the only national record label in Chicago. So I was based there in Chicago, so I became like a big man in town, you know, which was really, really fabulous. And then I was there maybe just about a year, and I received a call from a guy named Bruce Lundvall, who was the VP of marketing for CBS Records in New York. And I talked with him on the phone. He told me he wanted me to come in to sit with he and Clive Davis. And I went in and sat with them, and they offered me a job as the national. In other words, they wanted to set up a black music marketing division there at CBS, and they wanted me to build a staff, and my mission was to penetrate the black music marketing division, the black music marketing business on a national basis. So I put in my resignation at Mercury Records, which really was a sad occasion because I really loved that job, and the people loved me there. But, you know, I got a call from Clive Davis, Bruce Lundvall, and CBS Records, this is the biggest in the world. So I accepted that job November of 1971. And then as we moved into 72, I put a staff together. And matter of fact, this staff was called, they were called the Original 13, because it was a total of 13 individuals. And what I did, I put in, prior to this now, the record companies, the major record companies, they would have one guy on the East Coast, one guy on the West Coast. they covered the entire country that way. But what I did, the concept that I came up with, that I would put in a regional promotion manager and a local promotion manager. As an example, in Chicago, for instance, I put in a regional promotion manager that was responsible for the Midwest. And this manager would cover Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, the entire Midwest. And under them, I put in a local promotion manager for Chicago, a local promotion manager for Detroit, a local promotion manager for Cleveland. And I did the same thing all over the country. I could put in a West Coast regional promotion manager, then put in local promotion managers under him. And I duplicated that all over the country. Now, mind you, I had a big budget, but the product wasn't there yet. So once I had everybody in place, and what I did, I would go into, let's take Philadelphia for instance. I went into Philadelphia, and at the time, the top disc jockey in Philadelphia was a disc jockey named Georgia Woods. And he was also the program director there. And Georgia Woods, Georgia, I am going to hire a local promotion manager for CBS. Who would you suggest? He suggested a young man named Ahman McKissick. Now, if Georgia Woods suggested him, that guaranteed me airplay, that when my local promotion manager that he recommend comes in with my records, he's going to play them. I did the same thing all over the country. So now I got everybody in place. Now the next thing we can do is to come with the product, come with the records, come with the music. And we started coming with the music. The first one was on a group called the OJs. And their first release was a record called the Backstabbers by the OJs. And we released that record, went gold. Following the OJs, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, If You Don't Know Me By Now, went gold. Now I got these local guys and these regional guys all over the country in place upon the recommendations of the program directors. And then following Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Billy Paul, Me and Mrs. Jones, back to back million sellers, gold records. And it just exploded after that. And I worked in that position where we became the dominant force in black music. Then an opportunity to open up on an international basis. And I worked with the Jackson 5 on their first trip to Black Africa. And I worked with the promoter and I coordinated that trip. Prior to going, I went to Walter Yetnikoff and I asked him, do we have anything going on in Senegal? Because this is where we went. He said, no, why don't you check on it while you're there? So I did. So while there, I stayed over an extra week and I checked out the music scene in Senegal. And when I went back to New York, sat down with Walter Yetnikoff, he said, why don't you transfer over to the international division? Man, it was just unbelievable. A completely new world. So now I transferred from the domestic CBS to CBS International. And I'm working with a different mindset of guys. Most of the guys in the international division were all college graduates with advanced degrees. They all spoke several languages. So these are my peers. This is who I'm working with now. And my first task was to do a complete study of Black Africa, the music scene. And for 6 months, going back and forth to the State Department, the International Commerce Department there in Washington, D.C. And fortunately, my former roommate from college, a guy named Stan Scott, was a top black in the Nixon administration, because that's who was in office then. So consequently, when I would go into D.C. to do my study, to check on certain things on an international basis, I would stop by Stan's office first. Then he'd make the call that Westbrooks is coming by from the White House. So they just laid out the red carpet. So all the information that I needed, all of the corporation that I needed, it was all there for me. And after I completed that study, as a matter of fact, even doing that study, I also made a trip down to Jamaica. Reason being is that Jamaica, the music scene was so similar to the music scene in Africa. So I went down and I spent 6 weeks in Jamaica studying that. So I put that report together. Now I'm ready to actually go into the field in Africa. And what I did with the assistance of Stan Scott, because he had recently made a tour of all of Black Africa also. So his complete itinerary, he shared that with me. So that's the way I laid my trip out. He also sent out advance letters from the White House to all of those countries. So I started in Kenya, in East Africa. And I worked myself from East Africa into Central Africa, Zaire, the Congo, then into Ghana, the Ivory Coast, and I ended up in Nigeria. And of course, now for each one of my trips over, Senegal was my launching point, because that was my first trip. That's where I was most familiar with, and they were familiar with me. So on every trip, I would fly into Senegal first and take off from there. So consequently, I ended up in Senegal prior to going back to New York. And then I went back to New York, I made my report, and now I'm ready to get started. And the decision was made that we would set up shop in Lagos, Nigeria. Reason being, Nigeria was an English-speaking country. Nigeria also was the largest black population at that particular time. Now, they were then around 80 million. I think they more than tripled that now. But so consequently, the decision was made that we would set up shop in Nigeria. Now, the way the company was structured on an international basis, that regional office was in Paris, France. So I worked out of the Paris, France office in setting up my office in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, I also was responsible for the People's Republic of China as well. So I had China, and I had all of Black Africa. Set up shop in Lagos, Nigeria, and that's where I was working out of. And once I got started, it was enjoyable also. Then I got a call from my friend Don Cornelius, who at Soul Train show, who we were friends from back in my Chicago days, just as he was getting started. So he said, "Logan, I'm going to start this record label called Soul Train Records. Man, I want you with me." And of course, I had the fascination for the West Coast, because the first time that I was transferred to the West Coast was when I fell in love with the West Coast. Now here's this opportunity to come back to the West Coast. Fortunately, the home that we bought in '71, we never did sell it. We leased it out. So we came back into our same home. And I started working with Don Cornelius. And it was Don Cornelius and a guy named Dick Griffey, who went on to form Solar Records in later years. And that was another fabulous time with the Soul Train TV show and Soul Train Records. And then Don decided, man, I no longer want to be in this record business. It's not happening fast enough for me. He decided to close his record label. So when he closed his record label, Dick Griffey left, and he carried the buck of the axe with him. He formed a company called Solar Records. And I just started working on a full-time basis in my real estate ventures. That was like apartment buildings, shopping centers, office buildings. I was just doing that full-time. And then my good friend, young lady named Marnie Tattersall, who incidentally, Marnie Tattersall, when the Harvard study was done, She was a second-year student at Harvard, and she participated in that project. As a matter of fact, she was the most active student in that project. So when the project was completed, the Harvard study, I hired her as my assistant to help implement the plan. So we remained friends afterwards. So now I'm working full-time in the real estate business, my real estate ventures from the investment standpoint. Marnie is now working for a company called MCA New Ventures. She calls me. She said, Logan, this company where I am here now, we are in the process of loaning out monies and financing record labels and also other kinds of ventures in the music industry. And she says, Logan, we're getting a lot of proposals in here, young guys wanting to start a record label with our assistance and our financing. She said, none of these guys have the experience that you have. Why don't you put a proposal together and start a company? So I said, okay. Put a proposal together. The company was called Source Records, and we were financed by MCA New Ventures, and we were manufactured and distributed by MCA Universal. Put the company together. Then, as that was happening, we were functioning, we're ready to go. The first act that I signed to my label was a group called Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, and they had a record called Bustin' Loose. That was my first release, Bustin' Loose by Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. Went gold, platinum. Then, following that, I signed Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, who I knew back from my CBS days, and that was it. We were just flourishing. I mean, it was a fabulous time. And of course, that Source Records, we continued for about 2.5 years. And then through financing and just difficult to stay in business, basically the way the company was set up, MCA Universal was my manufacturer. So if I have a demand, say for 200,000 records or 90,000 records, I would order those records from the manufacturer. Those records would be pressed up. Now, my bill from them is due in 60 days, 60 to 90 days. But my product in the field, I won't start getting that, a return back on that, for 120 days. So consequently, they're demanding their money now. I'm not going to get my money for 120 days. So I'm caught in between. And a lot of small companies get caught up in advice like that. So consequently, I closed my doors and just start concentrating on the publishing end of my business that I had put together at the same time. And that's the way we just continued on. But it was a fabulous time. I loved every minute of it. And as I think back every last one of my jobs, even way back in Memphis, Tennessee, I loved every last one of them. But it was just a fluke, the way that I ended up in the music business.
Who was your favorite act or acts to work with, musical acts?
Johnny Nash, Johnny Mathis, Cannonball Adderley, Jules Avenue, Herbie Hancock was enjoyable. My best act, though, it would have to be Chuck Brown, and the work that I did with him, that record, the Bustin' Loose, and then a few years after that, Nelly came along and sampled it with a tune called Hot in Here.
Right.
But I would say those were my most enjoyable acts to work with. Lou Rawls, man, the best.
He also, you said you had mentioned you did some work for Sam Cooke and Elvis Presley in the park.
Yes, yeah. Well, that was really the very, very beginning. And with Sam Cooke, that's right around his death. So I didn't work personally with him, but now with Elvis I did. That was different. that was a different situation. I did work directly with Elvis.
That's cool. So you never met Sam Cooke? You didn't meet him?
No, because that was right around the time when he passed.
Yeah, I know it's kind of suspicious. I mean, you have to get into it. I just like Mr. Emerson Abel once told me. Emerson Abel Jr. Are you familiar with Mr. Emerson Abel Jr.?
No, I'm not.
He was a long-time band director at Manassas and Westwood and different places, but he was Isaac Hayes band director at Manassas. Kicked him out. And I'm working for Isaac Hayes at Stax, and did the Watch Stacks and stuff like that. But he told me that there's no such thing as a natural death in show business. Nobody dies a natural death in show business. That's his saying. He passed about 2 years ago. But like, how was it working with Elvis? Did he know you was from Memphis?
Well, with Elvis, the most I did with Elvis was his car, his limousine, was on tour. And it was a guy named Gabe Tucker, who was a friend of one of the top officials at RCA in New York. So he was responsible for the car, and he put the car out on a promotional tour. And when it came to the Midwest, there in Chicago, I accompanied he and the car in the Midwest. Basically what we would do, we would take the car and we would go out to the various shopping centers, and we would tie it in with the record department. And Elvis' car would be there on display with those red ropes around it, and we would tie it in with special sale in the record shop, and thousands of people would come just to see Elvis's car, and the idea was to sell more of his records. So that's what we did.
That's cool. So you never had a chance to talk to Elvis?
No.
What about how was it? 'Cause I know you was a pioneer, and sometimes pioneering is a lonely vocation. How was it to be sometimes the only black person in the room full of influential and powerful white people?
Well, my wife and I, we got accustomed to it. It really started when we were there at when I was in the management training program at RCA, and they did a lot of entertaining, a lot of parties, a lot of functions such as that. And that's true. My wife and I, we'd be the only black folk there, but we knew that we'd be there at the beginning. And by the time those drinks start flowing and all that, we'd make our exit. So we were able to deal with it that way.
So you didn't hear all the jokes. I mean, I'm gonna say I all wanted to know, but did they tell you certain things because they felt like you was like not black? No, you know what I'm saying? Like for you to be in that room with them.
Yeah.
Like you the exception.
Yeah, right.
So you didn't let that before they started drinking.
This was the accepted black person.
Right.
But my wife and I, we fully understood. And we would participate, and we'd make our exit.
So they started drinking. Hey, you from the South, you know how they. I want to ask you about Dick Griffin. I found him a fascinating character because I know he helped Suge Knight and Death Row when they was in their infancy, and there's some things that came about. It's like the system always dividing and conquering black folk when we try to work together on something. But I know Dick Griffith's from Nashville, correct? Is that true?
Yes.
Did you know he was a son of Tennessee before you worked with him? Or?
Yes, I did.
So did y'all talk about being from Tennessee?
No, we didn't.
I know you're from Memphis. You're from Nashville.
We didn't talk about that. But it was a joy to work with Dick Griffith. It really was. It was a joy to work with him.
What was his strongest? What was like greatest asset? Dick Griffith, what was his greatest?
Well, he was he knew music. He was a record man. He knew he could spot talent. He just had a gift for that, and that's exactly what he did. And that was the nucleus of his company, the talent that he spotted.
I want to actually know. What did Miss Campbell teach you at Booker T. Washington? What subject?
I don't remember what subjects did Miss Campbell taught. I don't remember. I do know that she had that gospel glee club, which I wasn't in, but I don't remember the subjects that she taught.
Well, but I know, you ever had a chance to connect or communicate with Mr. W.T. McDaniel at all? I know you wasn't in any music program. You have a chance to come across him?
No more than I just knew him as the band director, I didn't know him personally that way because I wasn't in the band.
Right.
But I certainly was familiar with his work, how fabulous that band was,
So it was a great sounding band?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no question about that. Yeah.
I know Maurice White was one of his bugle and drum corps.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at, like, you just talk about, I went to Booker T. Washington, but so many great folks came from that one high school. I mean, you, Marion Barry, Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, I go back to Johnny Ace. He dropped out of school, but Johnny Ace was one of my favorite singers from back in the day, old school singers. So many folks came out of that one high school. What were they doing at that high school?
Well, the thing is, basically, you only had two major high schools in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
There was Booker T. Washington on the south side,
Mm-hmm.
and Manassas on the north side.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Melrose was there.
Yeah, I was in.
Lesser known. Hamilton, lesser known. But your two majors was the south side, Booker T. Washington High School, and your north side, Manassas. And you had a lot of people that even lived in North Memphis that Booker T. Washington had such a great reputation, they wanted to attend Booker T. Washington High School. So consequently, so everybody was attracted to Booker T. Washington High School.
I also know that I read somewhere that W.T. McDaniel, he was actually over the band at Manassas at Booker T. Washington for one point, for some years. They taught the band at Manassas as well as Booker T. Washington at the same time.
No, that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, like he was doing that for years. Like, you know, I just thought that was interesting to note. Like you said, those are two most important.
Yeah,
schools
I never
at
knew
time.
that. I never knew that he.
Like, you imagine being in a football game, the first half was the Booker Teasers, the second half was the Rhythm Bombers, and you got two uniforms on. Teaching like that.
That's the first I have heard of that. I don't know how that would fit.
It's interesting. That's fascinating.
Because there was such a rivalry between those two schools,
Mm-hmm.
the bands, the sports department, and everything. I just don't see how that could really be. You know?
It's interesting. Are you familiar with his son at all? You talk
No, I'm not.
I know he's a doctor of ethnomusicology at the Ohio State University or Ohio State University.
No,
I think he's retired, but he's his name.
I remember his wife and his children, but I have not really followed them.
Yeah, I want to ask you, I mean, Memphis is such an interesting place. It's not normally considered a jazz town, but you was awarded 2017 Jimmy Lunsford Legacy Award for your dedication, a lifetime dedication to excellence in music and music education. And Mr. Lunsford, he actually started, I won't call him the father of Memphis music education, because what he did at Manassas for 3 years was phenomenal. It's like laying the groundwork for what was to come in terms of the Memphis music tradition. And I just want your thoughts on Mr. Lunsford. You had any thoughts about his music?
Well, this is all completely new to me. I am just fascinated. I went on your website, and I am really impressed. And I mean, this is unbelievable. I had no idea. You know, I'm going to get further into his background and his career. I knew that Manassas was sort of legendary, the school itself. As a matter of fact, I can't think of his name. That sort of he was a librarian at Memphis State, a graduate of Lemoyne, and he did something historical. Now he confirmed all of that historical information about Manassas High School, and I had a chance to get into the Talbot.
Okay.
Dr. Talbot.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a librarian at the Memphis City Library for a number of years, but he was a graduate of Lemoyne. He was a graduate of Manassas, and he was from North Memphis, and he sort of documented all of that information about Manassas. So I had a chance to get into that, but it was just such a strong rivalry between Manassas and Booker T. Washington High School. Then not only that, Booker T. Washington High School. It attracted so many students, and for the entire South Side. Like as an example, I'm attending Booker T. Washington High School, but I'm passing about 2 or 3 white high schools to get to Booker T. Washington. So all of those students were there. Like as an example, even in my senior class, there were 532 students that graduated in my senior class.
That's in the senior class.
In my senior class. My graduating class, we had 532 students. I think the school itself had about 3,000 students. Wow. 3,000, maybe about 3,500. That's a large high school. So that's what you had there. So with that many students in one school, so naturally those unusually talented individuals would come out of there. The same as Manassas. Manassas was a large high school as well. So a lot of black talent came out of Manassas.
Now you think about, you flip it today, which is interesting. Y'all had such a high graduation rate, and you flip it today in those same schools, like the population has declined. People are talking about closing these schools down. You know, like Manassas just had a new school built, and now they're talking about closing it down or doing something else with it. And a lot of that history is not well known among the population, among the students there, nor is it really passed down really in a good way. I mean, I know you talk about the librarian at Manassas, documenting the Manassas history, but it's not well known among the young students. What could be done, you think, to get them to know more about their history of their school and their community?
Well, the writing of books, teaching and telling our story. I think it's important that people in my era, you get to write this stuff that put it in the form of a book, which is one of the reasons why. And I've written 3 books on the music industry, and I feel that it's important that we tell our story. If we don't tell it, it's not going to be known. So we've got to tell it, and it'll be there forever. Another thing too, all of my papers, I have deposited it at the University of Indiana. So all my entire career, everything is there at the University of Indiana. So anyone anywhere in the world can access it. I mean, papers, pictures, and everything at the University of Indiana. It's the Logan WEstbrooks collection, Indiana University. Anyone anywhere in the world can find out about what Logan WEstbrooks was into concerning the black music business. It's documented. It's there for the world to see. And I think that other black executives, black individuals, should write that information down, put it in a book form, and put it out there, so it'll be known forever.
Yeah, speaking of your book, your most recent book, The Anatomy of the Music Industry, how the game was and how the game has changed. Has it changed that much in your opinion?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In that particular book, which I wrote about 2 years ago, this book here, which was written about 2 years ago, and what really takes place in this book, I have more than 30 different experts who was at the top of their game. They've all contributed chapters into this book, and it's telling exactly how it was. Then I segue over into how it is here today. So for a person that doesn't know anything about the music industry or the music business, but is interested in the music business, this is a must-read book here, because it lays it all out. And interestingly, each writer that contributed to this book, I got a commitment from them. Man, or lady, put in your email address. So if some young person out there is reading this book or reading your chapter, and they have additional questions, they can email you, and you'll dialogue with them. Every last one of them put the email address in there. So it's very, very good. Wow. So one that's just starting out, man, you get into this book here, it's all laid out there for you.
So do you have any musical talent?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So let me ask you this. I was thinking about when you were saying all that. That's awesome that they got that contact information, because we do need to have that village concept where we help nurture each other and hold each other up and leave that door open so people could come through. Would you suggest more young people or people of color get involved behind the scenes or on the executive levels, or instead of getting in front of the camera or in the recording booth?
Well, there are so many interesting and fabulous careers in the music industry other than singing or writing music. See, we all don't have the talent to sing, or even to write music, or or even to produce. But on the business side, there are so many areas that one can get into in the music industry and do very, very, very well. See, the interesting thing about the music industry here, years ago, the major labels were the gatekeepers. And if they did not allow you in, you didn't get in. But with these youngsters here now, since you didn't let me in, I'll devise a way to get in myself. So that's why you came in for all these independent artists that's doing so very, very well. They're doing exceptionally well because the major labels didn't let them in. So consequently, it has been the demise of your major labels. They've closed shop, and you only have about 3 or 4 now that's still in business.
Wow. So will you suggest to artists today that it's best to go the independent route versus trying to sign with a so-called
Well,
label?
basically, that's the only way they can go. Because the few major labels is out there, they're still not going to let them in. So strike out on your own through YouTube and through the streaming service and all of that, you know.
So you think streaming is good for music? Or, I mean, like, you know,
it's good in the sense that it'll get an artist exposed. It'll get an artist out there. They're not paying what they should pay them, but that's gradually being turned around.
Because so new, it's such a new phenomenon, so to speak.
Right.
So like the industry has always been like, it's like it's been 20 years or 15 years behind like what's actually going on. Is that true?
Right. Yes, it is. But the fortunate thing with the way things are here now, with the artists striking out on their own, creating their own, they're getting a much bigger slice of the pie, which is the way that it should be, because they are the creators. They should get the biggest piece of the pie.
Why is it so hard for black people, black businessmen, to control the distribution of the music? Why is it such a hard phenomenon? I read about stories about people trying to come together, then things fall apart. Is that a myth about it being hard for black people to try to control the distribution of their own intellectual property in the business?
Well, years ago, all of the major distributors were white owned, and they controlled it. Now there were in the 70s there were one or two black distributors, relatively small. The Lina brothers, for instance, out of Chicago, they had a distributor out of Chicago, but they were far and few. They wasn't that many of them out there, and consequently, it was controlled by the white label, the white majors. So it was difficult to get in. They controlled it all.
So it's like them brothers had to be real tough guys.
Oh yeah,
they couldn't be no pushover.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you about
and also there was somewhat of a gangster element.
I was gonna ask you about that.
That was involved in distribution.
You said Chicago.
I can remember when I was a salesman in Chicago, and I had all these different rack jobbers and retailers that I was, and one stops rather, that I was servicing, and I was dealing with these guys. And then they had some kind of a big, huge, major gangster bust in Chicago, and then the Chicago Tribune, on the front page, all these guys' pictures was on there. I said, "These are the guys I'm dealing with," and I had no idea what was going on, you know. But see, it's interestingly, if you really study it. It came from the days of the speakeasy back there in Chicago. And the speakeasies were where they had these jukeboxes in all of these clubs, where they were selling whiskey, girls, and everything. So they had the jukeboxes in there, and for the jukeboxes, they had to have records. So consequently, they were purchasing all these records to go in their jukeboxes. And that led into them becoming one-stops and rack jobbers, because they had all the records, and the record shops could come to them one stop to get all of the records, and it just evolved into that gangster scene.
Wow. So I'm looking at popular culture. I want to talk to you about the show Empire and stuff like that. Is the organized crime influence overstated though? Is it overinflated?
I say it's overstated somewhat, but then they want to make good television.
All right.
But it's overstated somewhat, yes.
So what do you think about the show Empire?
Oh, I love it. I think it's a great show.
Is it accurate to us, or is it not accurate, or?
It's right on it.
So how are you able to navigate in a sea full of sharks and you like Daniel in the lion's den?
I was always like on the sidelines, you know. On the sidelines, and never really had to become involved. I can even remember back when Morris Levy, who allegedly was one of the top gangsters in the New York market, the Roulette Records was alleged to have been a gangster-run label. But you know, again, I was on the sideline. I was able to deal and do what I had to do without really becoming tainted or involved. You know, I can even think of let's take Otis O.C. Smith, who allegedly he was managed by the gangster element that brought him to CBS. And as you get into it, there was somewhat some ties in with that, you know. But again, you know, I was able to maneuver and get around all of that, not become involved, just do what I had to do and keep on stepping.
So how were you able to become such an amazing salesman and a marketer? Like, was that taught to you, or you just had it and you just had that talent?
Well, in terms of selling, you know, I've been selling newspapers and things from about 4 years old. I was selling newspapers, the Memphis World, and then the Tri-State Defender, and then Jet Magazine, you know, and I was a good salesman, and I always kept money in my pocket, even then and even right now.
But can that be taught, like to be what you have? Like you was able to sell, you was a prodigy. So you was able to do that at 4 years old. Can it be really taught in school?
I don't think it can really be taught. I think it's more of inborn. Like as an example, I've done very, very well in the real estate business. And I did my best to get one of my nephews interested. And like he's been around me, he's been exposed, everything, you know. And then I can remember, you know, when his mother died a few years ago, and he inherited her house, which is now rented out. His father did quite a few real estate ventures in Holly Springs, Mississippi, shopping centers, apartments, things such as that. And even at one time, there was some guy in Memphis, some white guy in Memphis, that put him in charge of, he had maybe about 15 or 20 different rental units that he was in charge of. So he has been into it. And I would say that within the past 3 years, I've been around him and observed him, and have been prepared to assist him into making some real estate moves. But he went in another direction, and I just came to the conclusion that he does not have a passion for real estate. So I left it alone. Now, sure, I could have gotten him into it, but it wouldn't have gone nowhere. But you've got to have a passion for it. He did not have a passion for the real estate business, which I knew he could have done very, very well, but he didn't have that passion. So you could have a passion for it, you know. Like to me, I was like a junkie of real estate. I can even remember years ago, working as a promotion manager, going in and out, and on an original basis, going in and out of those Midwestern cities. And I would always pick up the newspaper and go to the real estate section. I just had a passion, just checking it out, you know, seeing what it's all about, what houses are for sale, what apartment buildings are for sale. I just had that passion. And then when I really got heavily into the real estate business, when I was at work at Soul Train, I would leave my offices at Soul Train, and I had met this real estate broker, and he just taught me the real estate business here on the West Coast. And he saw that I had a passion for it. He just fed it into me. And then he started giving me all the deals that normally a broker would keep for himself. Wow. At one point, my wife would be picking up like a building a month. He was feeding them all to me. And also we had good credit, which is very, very important too. And we just mushroom from there. In shopping centers, office, just everything, you know. Yeah.
So I'm hearing you got to have passion to do the things you want to do.
Right.
So what do you say to people that are working jobs they don't want to work, they're not happy, or
quit it, leave it,
or live in a place because the cost of living is not too.
Find your job that you enjoy doing. Do something that you enjoy. Create your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you know anybody that has this type of zeal for real estate and sales in your family? Like you trying to figure out where did this come from at all? Did it ever cross your mind?
I really don't know. I guess it just happens, you know. I think back even to when I used to play as a kid, used to play Monopoly, and I just love Monopoly. It could have come from that, you know.
Wow. So what would you tell a person, like, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I had one brother.
Okay.
And I had 3 sisters. One of them is deceased. Two of my sisters still alive.
Are you the oldest, eldest?
No. you talk about music. When I came up in music, you know, all black folk, they had their children take piano lessons, music lessons. And I had a brother and a sister that was ahead of me. They took piano lessons. And then I had two sisters behind me. They took piano lessons. So I was right in the middle. It was never even offered to me. Don't know why. It was never even offered. And I'm the one that ended up in the music.
They want to ask you the ironies of life. Like, what do you think about that? But your brother and sister your siblings had time to reflect upon that you actually was the one that got into the music industry.
No, not really. But then I can't ask my mother because she's no longer here. But it wasn't even offered to me.
Well, did they, like, it's like you have a lot of confidence in yourself. So was that taught and instilling you by your parents? I mean, why?
Well, from my parents and also from my high school days, that Blair T. Hunt, as well as those teachers that was there, you know. They instilled it on a daily basis, not only to me, but all the students that were there.
So, like, was Nat D. Williams there?
Yeah, oh yes.
So how was he as a teacher or as a person? Like?
I never did courses from Nat D. Williams, but interesting about Nat D. Williams. Nat D. Williams, when he was on, let's say, if he was on monitoring duty in the study hall, he would be standing up there, and he had to thick glass with book in his face, you know. And every time I saw him, he was reading books, and I believe I picked up on that from him.
Wow.
I mean, if I'm in a bank line, I am miserable if I don't have a book or newspaper to read while I'm moving up. And I don't know if that came from Nat D. Williams or just what. But I am an avid reader. I mean, an avid reader. I've always got to have something to read. Like just the other day, my wife and we went to the movie, and as we left, I had to pick up all the latest magazines and things there that, not magazines, but newspapers and things that I didn't have a copy. Even the Jewish Journal, you can pick that up.
Wow.
I've got to read it.
Let me ask you about how was it to work with Don Cornelius? How was that?
Well, we were personal friends, and it was a pleasurable experience as well. It really was. I enjoy he was the boss, and every financial commitment that he made, he fulfilled it. And even a couple of real estate ventures that we did together. Now, he did not have a passion for real estate. Now, those two ventures that we did, like I convinced him, and come on in, etc., etc., could have done much more because he had such a deep pocket. But a couple of things we did do together that was profitable and lucrative for both of us. But he didn't have that passion. I can remember there was a building in the heart of Beverly Hills, right off of Rodeo Drive. It was a 3-story red brick building, office building, and it was available for about $350,000. Now this was in the early 80s, yeah. And I'm doing real estate, but I couldn't handle that. I went to Don and said, "Why don't we do this together?" He didn't see it, so consequently, I just moved on. Till eventually, I just decided my partner is my wife, and so that's everything. My wife and I now, you know. But he just didn't have that passion. And we'd done a couple of things and we'd made some money on it, but he just didn't have that passion.
He was from Chicago, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you like Chicago played a huge theme in your life.
Yeah, that's where we first met that day in Chicago and became friends. Yeah.
You ever had a chance to run across Dr. Ben Branch in Chicago? From Memphis,
Ben Branch.
Douglas. Yeah, he was a saxophonist for
us.
I
knew Ben very, very, very well. As a matter of fact, his wife Vivian is my wife's best girlfriend.
Yeah, I saw her back in June. We had honored her husband at the Jimmy Lawson Refrain.
Yeah, and we see her. Matter of fact, every time we go to Memphis, we always see her. My wife talks to her on average once or twice a week.
That's song. What type of music? What do you think about his music, Ben Branch?
Well, I loved his music. I loved his music. I thought he's a great horn player. I didn't particularly care for him. I thought he was arrogant and an asshole, you know. But I loved his music though.
That's cool. He was really involved in the church too, correct? Was he active in the churches?
Well, he was active in Operation Push there, Jesse Jackson Church in Chicago. Yeah.
Do you ever talk about like the fact that Dr. King, the last person Dr. King spoke to on earth was him. Like that's what they say. Like he asked him to play Precious Lord, and then he got shot.
No, I never discussed that with him. Never did.
I'd ask you, I'm a jazz fan. Like, how was it work with Julian Cannonball Adderley? How was that experience?
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. We were actually friends.
Wow.
We really were.
So were you shocked when he passed away? Like so?
Yeah, I was. Matter of fact, even every time they came to Chicago, the entire group that I've always come out to our house for dinner. When we would come out to the West Coast, even if he was on tour, we would always stay at his home in Bel Air with his wife. We're still with his widow. We're still very, very good friends of hers.
Right, I know him and his brother were awesome. Like Adley and his brother.
And when we lived in New York, his brother Nat, who they lived in Teaneck, New Jersey, and on weekends we were always over there at their place. So we were very, very good. And we met through Capitol Records and through the group.
Wow, that's amazing. So you had lived an extraordinary life. You was in the service too, correct?
Yeah.
What branch of service?
I did 24 months in the Army. I was drafted. I was drafted in the Army November of '63, November of '61, and got out November of '63.
Right before Vietnam, right?
Well, I was stationed at Fort Bragg, and which was one of the launching bases for Vietnam, and a lot of my buddies and things were leaving, going to Vietnam. I was in the ROTC in college, and all of my buddies that went into the military service went to Vietnam. We were all in college together in ROTC. Every last one of them. But the three of them were actually killed.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, like, were they different when they came back? Like, you noticed a change in some of your fellows or your buddies?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. Like one in particular right now that I'm still into on a regular basis in Chicago. And no, I wouldn't say that, no.
Well, it was interesting, like you working with Harold Melvin and Blue Note. With Teddy Pendergrass, was he involved in that group as well?
Oh, yeah.
So what was like interacting with him, working with him? I know he ended up outshining Harold Melvin. Yeah. He ended up surpassing, going somewhere else.
I'm going to tell you a story about that now. When I signed Harold Melvin and Blue Note to my label here, and he had Sharon Page, who was an extraordinarily great talent. And I did on that album. Sharon Page did a tune. When will we be together soon?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And we had such great success with it. So what I wanted to do was to do an album on Sharon Page. And Harold Melvin thing was, I won't create another Teddy Pendergrass.
Wow.
So consequently, I just had that one thing on her on that album, but nothing else. I was going to do an entire album on Sharon Page because she was just that talented.
And she's still around, or?
I think she is.
Yeah, so she was like a one-hit wonder. That would be classic.
Well, I can't say a one-hit wonder because she did that one tune on that album, but she continued to work with Harold Melvin. I don't think she ever did an album thing on her own at all, not ever.
Was it kind of like a regret thing? Could you see her become a big star if she was able to do that record with you or that album?
I thought she would have been a very good single artist, very big. I think so.
Did she have confidence in herself?
Yeah.
Okay, but she still.
She was Harold Melvin's woman too.
Okay, there you go.
And he was also very, very abusive.
Oh, I didn't know.
So all of that factored in, you know.
So what is like when people talk about, it's like so many stars die young in the business. And I ain't gonna say so many, but a lot of notable ones pass away very soon. Is it the business, or is it that people make these choices? Or some people like to blame the industry for creating an environment that's conducive to people to self-destruct?
Well, they make those choices, and then too, here's a guy, say from the ghetto. And never had anything, and all of a sudden they had this big huge record, and people are coming from everywhere. Money is that they'd never even dreamed of getting is there, and they just lose it. That's what happened.
You kind of remember when you just said, like, when Mike Tyson said something, give a dude that never had nothing at 20 years old $1 million and see him self-destruct, something like to that effect.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying.
Basically the same thing.
So what could be done in order to prepare? I mean, can you really prepare for that type of sudden lifestyle change or reality change?
No, you can't. No, you can't. And the thing is, usually it's like those people. Well, let's take Sly Stone for instance.
That's great, yeah.
As brilliant as he was and as successful as he was, see, the thing is, he's indulgent, and everybody around him is indulgent. So now this straight guy comes along to try and enter that circle to kind of stabilize Sly Stone, but that inner circle is going to force that individual out. So either you join or comply or get the hell out of the way. So that's what happens. So you have good intentions of trying to rescue Sly or that particular individual, but they're not going to allow you, because once you do that, that's the end of what they're doing.
Right.
So that's what happens.
Wow. So I heard you say you stayed on the sidelines, but you was but how did you get the people respect in terms of the folks who did indulge? How were you able to get their trust and respect?
Well, you know, I know what I know, and I'm good at what I do, you know. And now it's time for that. I'm out of here. You know, I've been married to the same woman for 51 years, you know. And on a lot of my trips and things, my wife was right there with me, which is a fortunate thing for us, see, because it was never necessary say for us to say we're going to take a vacation. The entire time for the past 40 years it's been a vacation.
So what's the secret to staying together that long for 51 years?
I don't know.
Is that a secret?
I don't know if there's a secret or anything, or something I can pass on, but I mean, I was into her and she was into me, you know. And of course, you know, the women were there. They were all over the place.
I go in badger.
But I was into her and she was into me, and that was it. You know?
Did y'all meet in school or something? Like, where did y'all meet?
We met here at a club in Memphis.
Really? So she's a Memphian?
Yeah. We met at a club in Memphis. Sure did.
Wow, that's amazing. So you have any children?
Yeah, I have a daughter.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it's my grandchildren right there.
That's beautiful. Wow. That's beautiful family.
My grandson and my 3 granddaughters.
Are they out? She out there, out California?
No. They all live in England.
England? Really? Wow. So she married an Englishman or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is she involved? Are any of your offspring? Are they involved in the music business at all?
No. My this granddaughter there, Jordan. She dabbled in the matter of fact. I mentioned her in this book. She dabbled in music for a minute, but she just finished medical school just this summer.
That's amazing. Wow. So you're very proud. You're a proud grandfather. So you never thought your life would turn out like this? You didn't have any plan?
I had no idea.
So you had no 5-year, no 10-year plan?
I had no idea.
So what advice you give to people that trying to figure out something for their lives? What advice would you give to them?
Well, find something that you enjoy doing, that you have a passion for it, and just perfect that. And be determined, you know. Just perfect it.
Thank you so much, Dr. WEstbrooks. The words are great to go. We love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing. I want to ask you first, like, what's the perception of Memphis in the music industry? Like, what's your take on the perception of Memphis?
Well, it's still looked upon as a great music town. And most people figure if you're from Memphis, you got to be talented. You got to be a great musician because you're from Memphis. It's not exactly true, but that's the perception, though. And but then too, you have so many great musicians from Memphis. So it's almost true.
Right. Exactly. Also, like, I was thinking about Harold Melvin and Blue Notes. I mean, not Blue, yeah, the Blue Notes, and also some other folks from back in the day, like Marvin Gaye, whatnot. Curtis Mayfield had this powerful, like, message music. Is that lost today, or you think there's over exaggeration when people say there's no message or consciousness in the music?
Well, I am from the old school, but I'm inclined to believe that some of these rappers out here is some messages what they are putting out here as well. So it's in a different form. Now the way Curtis Mayfield wrote music and the way that Marvin Gaye wrote music and the messages that were in that music, the way Kenny Gamble and Huff wrote music, the message that was in their music for that time, for that era. But I'm inclined to believe that these rappers out here now are doing exactly the same thing. Being from the old school, I am not into it as much as I was, say, years ago, say, with the Curtis Mayfield, those kinds of writers. But what they wrote then is still as relevant today as it was then.
What about the uses like bitches and hoes and niggas? Like, you have a problem with that in the expression of the art?
Well, see, I think an artist should really be able to express themselves as they see it. And those are derogatory terms and things such as that. But you got to think in terms of the environment that these youngsters came out of. And this is what they know. This is what they are about. And until they find out better or something else or some other alternative, I said let it flow. Eventually they will come around. But in the meantime, let it flow. Don't put any clamps on their creativity.
And that's something coming from a man who's a minister or a preacher, and with your background. Was there ever a conflict with your religious beliefs and the industry, dealing with your secular profession? Was there ever a conflict, a moral dilemma for you?
No. I believe it could have had one effect on it. I spoke out at Azusa Pacific University, which is one of the top Christian colleges in the country. And I spoke out there right around the time that Nelly record, Hot in Here.
Right. That was a big hit. I know a lot of good royalty checks out there.
Yeah, and I spoke out there at the university, one of the classes, and that was one of the songs I used in my presentation, just an excerpt from it, I was never invited back, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Is it recorded in the presentation at all somewhere floating around?
I don't think so.
But it's interesting to see an elder. I mean, like somebody who's well respected in the business, and also have a standing in the community like you, to embrace these people with sometimes an abrasive message. That you actually extended a hand to welcome them, say, hey, look, this is I've been through some stuff. I can still recall from 20-something years ago, I'm a big Tupac fan and all this stuff, and see the Lois Tucker, the way she went after Tupac and some of the people in the industry, and Tupac was kind of pissed off about it, because why you just can't talk to me like you're an elder, why you can't just come to me in a different way, and we have a sit down, and he talked about it in his lyrics and whatnot. I think she ended up suing the Tupac estate for some of the things said, but I mean, it's refreshing to hear that you are actually trying to understand where these people are coming from, whether to demonize them.
Yeah. Well, again, see, you're dealing with creative people. You can't put no clamps on them, man. You just got to let it flow.
I can tell a lot of people that work with you.